I'm Lauren. I'm the president for Women in Business. Today, Ms. Hogan is going to be speaking to us about your strengths for your LinkedIn profile. She has some information about resumes and stuff like that. So I will go ahead and let her introduce herself and then go ahead and get started.
Yeah, so thank you, ladies. I think it's great that you're all networking and in a club like this, because that's going to really kind of help you in your job search, just in terms of learning best practices and even having the connections with your classmates. So that's great. Kind of combining a couple of different topics in this, leveraging your strengths on your LinkedIn profile. So we're not going to talk a ton about strengths, but we will get into it a little bit. Let's see here. Wait, sorry. Okay, so the way I thought I would start today was just kind of interviews when people are actually interviewing for jobs. Like, what are some of the most dreaded interview questions that you think are out there? So maybe you want to put them in the chat, or if you guys want to unmute, just tell me if you think there's a question that you kind of dread. Okay. Times have changed. Tell me a time when. Yep. Tell us about yourself. Anything else? How do you motivate your teammates? That's a good one. Well, one of you, Bella, gets the prize from my standpoint. And actually, is it Malette? She's got what skills do you have? So let's see here. Tell me about yourself was the one that I think a lot of people struggle with. I do career coaching. And so I thought what I would do is kind of, as I introduce myself, kind of do it in the way that you might in an interview. So when someone asks you to tell them about yourself, it can feel really overwhelming because it's like, do you talk about your family? Do you talk about your personal life? Do you talk about your interests, your hobbies, or do you just talk about what you want to do from a work standpoint? So just to kind of give an example for an interview, because that is very often the first question. Or it can come to you in a couple of different ways. They might say something like, give me a little bit of your history, or how did you get to where you are today? Or just, tell me about yourself. So what I would say with that from a recommendation is to start out kind of high level. I would try to keep it more to your education and what you want to do from a business standpoint. You guys don't have the advantage of having like 20 years of work experience. So you might have to talk a little bit about school and possibly personal life if it's something that seems very kind of business oriented. So for these purposes, my example would be, what I would say if I was asked that would be, I started out of college in human resources, knew I wanted to work with people, and human resources was kind of a good way to do that in a business environment. I started out in recruiting and then worked for a bank, an ad agency, hired many different positions. And then I stayed home with my kids for a while, and I'm back in human resources consulting. What I really love to do and what I'm passionate about is recruiting and making connections for people and helping people who are looking for jobs understand how they can do that in the best way. So that's kind of how I would do it. It also can be a little bit difficult when you are on a phone interview because you don't have the benefit of seeing if the person wants to move on. But we want to keep it relatively short. So I'm going to flip for a second here and go over to LinkedIn. So I think I'm going to have to, you don't see LinkedIn coming up, do you? I think I'm going to have to reshare. So doing a share with you guys. And you should see my LinkedIn profile.
Yep, it popped up.
Okay, great. So this is kind of a little bit of a tell me about yourself, but a visual tell me about yourself. So we really want that to be consistent. We want to have a consistent personal brand. Is the person that I seem like in all their interactions, the person that they see on here? So is my resume kind of similar? So if on here, I'm all about being, into career transitions and recruiting, if my about section, and I'm going to just click on it sorry. If my about section is talking about loving, connecting people, helping people in career transition, I want to make sure that my resume is kind of sending that same message. I also want to make sure that when I'm talking, I kind of sound like this person that's on here. So who you have to kind of think about, what is your brand? Are you a people connector? Are you a numbers person? Are you a strategist, an idea person, a creative person? And then how do you work with people too? So that's kind of your personal brand. We're going to flip back to that other page. So I just wanted to show you that for a second, and we can look at that again in a little bit. But we'll go back to the PowerPoint. And going to sort of one of the second dreaded interview questions would be, what are your strengths? Which is kind of like the what are your skills question that we got in the chat box. And the third one that kind of goes hand in hand with that is, what are your weaknesses? So when we think about strengths, let's just chat. Let's put in the chat box some strengths that come to mind. And if you guys pretend I'm asking you what your strengths are, put in the chat box some different strengths that come to mind. And let's take a look at those. Okay. Ability to diffuse tense situations. That's great. Organized, reliable, forward thinking. I like the forward thinking. Thorough, methodical problem solver. Okay. Team player. Okay, great. So the tricky part about strengths is we do come up with some sort of typical strengths that we hear a lot. Like we hear, organized, which, believe me, people say it because it's super critical to many, many jobs. So that is not a bad strength at all. Reliable is certainly something that an employer wants. Being a team player as well, and having an ability to deal with clients or problem solve. There is an assessment out there that we use that's called Clifton Strengths. It's about $20 if you guys want to ever do it on your own. It could be something that they do at school as well. Some colleges actually use Strengths. It was also called Strengths Finder. So one of when you take that assessment, you kind of come up with, I'm going to flip back, you come up with what your strengths are, and they tend to be very specific. So like my strengths are ideation, woo, which is winning others over. I've got includer, communication, and adaptability. So they're very, very specific. So the more specific, the more you can kind of hone in on who you are, the better. And again, the more that can be consistent across your brand, the better. Weaknesses are things that whenever we get asked a question about weaknesses, we kind of want to keep just a little bit of the answer about the weakness and the rest of the answer, which is bigger and longer, about how we either compensate for it or how we've identified it and, kind of overcome the any issues that could arise from that weakness. Oftentimes, your strengths have a shadow side that really becomes your weakness. So, for example, um, ideation. I'm great at coming up with ideas. I'm very creative. But when I get a lot of ideas, sometimes I have a hard time starting something. So let's say if it was a big paper I had to write, it's not really procrastinating. It's just I keep getting ideas about it. Or I get so many ideas, I don't really know which one to choose. So that could be kind of a shadow side. Um, the Another example would be communication. It could be talking too much and not listening enough. So every strength has a little bit of a shadow side. So we always want to make sure we're really pushing forward using that strength in the best way that we can. And when we're interviewing, we want to be truthful and authentic to who we are, but we also don't need to, kind of advertise that it's a big issue for us. And that's sometimes those types of conversations are better held one on one if you do have a career coach or someone who you're working with, to kind of make sure that you're handling the search in the best way possible. So, today, what we're going to do is talk more about LinkedIn specifically. I already mentioned a little bit about your personal brand, and then how do we make LinkedIn work for you? It's not just like a resume that is sort of stagnant, although ideally your resume should not be stagnant. You should be slightly tweaking it for every job, even if it's just the top third of it. And that's something, again, that a career coach can kind of work with you on, or maybe someone in your career center. But it is critical to sort of jump out from the pool if you've got 100 applicants, really making sure that your resume is speaking to the recruiter specifically enough. But we'll talk a little bit about how to make LinkedIn actually work for you and how to use it. So LinkedIn has this term all-star profile. And when you go into LinkedIn, if you just start out and put like a little bit of information, like your contact information and, nothing else in there, you will just start out as a beginner. And then it'll make suggestions to you to add something else. So it might say, add your profile picture. It might say add a banner. The banner is the back side behind your profile picture. And if you recall on mine, and we can look at mine again if you want, mine had sort of an outdoor kind of a path through a woods. The strong headline, the headline is under your name. The about section is kind of the summary about you. And then how many connections you've got, how much experience you've listed, the skills, if you have recommendations, and your contact information. Also posting often. Okay, if you do all these things, if you complete every section that LinkedIn offers, you will have what they call an all-star profile. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to put something in the chat, by the way. Let's see. And Bella was asking a question about how do we spell what? Sorry. Let me know if that's something.
I think she was asking in reference to the strength finders. You had said a specific name.
Gotcha. Yeah, you know what? I will type it right here. It was called Clifton Strengths. I'm sorry. It was originally called Clifton, or it was originally called Strengths Finder. They rebranded it and it's called Clifton Strengths. So you might find information under both things, and it's the same thing. So the other thing that's a little bit different that they changed, there's 34 strengths. They only reveal 5 strengths. The reason for that was Donald Clifton, who started Strength Finders and came up with this assessment, felt that if you only knew your top 5 strengths, that you could spend a lifetime trying to develop those. He also felt that since it was a very positive based assessment, that if you originally on day one, kind of get all 34 strengths, because we're human, our eye would immediately go down to our worst, our 34. And then we might start thinking too much about that when the whole point is to really grow the top strengths, to be in a place. Now, we do entire training sessions on Clifton Strengths. And if you're ever interested, and maybe it'd have to be, see if your family or someone can give it to you as a gift, we do some online Clifton Strengths classes. And they're normally $99. If you're a student, we could probably give you a discount. So if that's anything that you guys would ever be interested in, let me know. But those are actually about 2 hours long. You break out, you learn about your strengths, you learn about other people's strengths. But the idea is, for example, let's say that your dominant hand is your right hand. If you write with your right hand, if you were asked to write the same sentence, like I do best when I work in my strengths. If we asked you to write it in your left hand, it would be probably awful, your non-dominant hand. So you could practice and practice and practice with that non-dominant hand, and you'd probably get a little bit better, but you'd never get as good as you would with your dominant hand. So your dominant hand, you could learn calligraphy, and art probably faster than regular writing in your non-dominant hand. So that's kind of the idea. That's why we want to grow what we're already good at and make that even better, because it'll be exponentially better. I see a question about connections, about 500. 50 is kind of a minimum, I think, just to get to the all-star profile. The more connections you have, I hesitate to say the better, but if they're true connections, people you really know, the more the better. LinkedIn would say don't connect with someone unless you know them. Like you could all connect with me, and because of what I do in recruiting, I do have a few thousand connections, but most people don't need that many. I'm, advertising jobs, and we're doing marketing. So for our work, it's important to have a lot. From the standpoint of being a job seeker, I would say go through your email list, your connections, and anybody, neighbors, family, friends, jobs that you worked at, and try to connect with people that you know. And the more the better, but don't accept weird connections from, people that you don't know or you don't think that you're going to potentially want to talk to regarding a job. So I've just got this little cartoon in here. So take a second to read that. And I don't know if some of you are on the phone, I'll read it. It was a mistake for Eric to wear a t-shirt to his job interview. It was a bigger mistake to wear that particular t-shirt, which his t-shirt, if you're on the phone, says bite me. So the first impressions do count. And for some people, the first impression is your resume or it's your LinkedIn profile. So the more professional both of those are, the better impression you're going to make to a prospect, a contact, a recruiter, or an employer. So this goes without saying, and I'm sure you guys have probably heard it ad nauseum to death, not to have crazy, party pictures and to wear something professional, but even just to have a good photo. And you can Google how to get a good photo. You can have a friend do it with an iPhone. Just try not to be like, straight back like it's a mugshot. Try to make it professional though. It's definitely not a time to wear the sexy shirt. Just keep it professional. So your personal brand is really comprised of several different things. It's the image you portray. So that's visual. Oops, sorry, I accidentally clicked that. It's the image that you portray, the actual visual that they get. It could be that that profile picture. It might be, how you look when you come into the interview. If you look fabulous with this amazing headshot, and then you come into the interview and, you've got a messy bun, that might not be the image that you want to portray, or it might be, depending on the type of company you want to work for. It also is sort of your mission. Like, what are you inspired by? Do you want to work in a competitive, financial environment, make a lot of money? Do you want to change the world? Do you want to help people? So kind of what drives you? What are your strengths? People person, numbers person. Not that there's only those two, but kind of who are you and what's interesting about you? What are your values? Your personality? Anything specific. So that's where I go back to that word organized. Someone who's organized, like in Strength Finders, there could be maybe different words. You could have analytical, you could have disciplined, deliberate, restorative, arranger, achiever. So many different words. An achiever is very different than an organized person. It's more specific, I should say, than just a person who's organized. So anything specific is going to resonate and be retained by somebody interviewing you. They're going to remember it much more than sort of dependable, organized kind of a thing. Or people person. How are you a people person? Are you a people person because you're funny? Are you because you are creative, because you're a good listener, you're empathetic? All these things are much more specific. And then, as I said earlier, authenticity. It needs to be something authentic to you. Don't say that you're, dependable, organized, flexible, if you're not. That you're going to be in the wrong job, then you're going to be miserable and you're not going to do a good job. The right column is how and where you will show some of those things on your LinkedIn profile. So the banner, there's a standard banner, or you can create your own. Like mine has I always put pictures from Michigan because that's where I'm from. That's where I vacation. I'm kind of a Michigan fan. Profile picture, headline, and I'll show you a little bit about the headline later. That's what goes under your picture. It's a very searchable field as well for recruiters. You want to make sure that that's optimized. The about section, features section, if you're a writer, if you've got artwork that you do, graphic design, anything like that. You can blogs, that can all go in your features section. Skills, volunteer work, that tells a lot about your passions as well. And then who do you follow? Are you following thought leaders? And then recommendations are very important too. And you need to request recommendations from other people. Sometimes that means giving recommendations also, but let people know. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Looking in the chat. How do you request recommendations? Good question. There's actually about 3 different ways to request recommendations. So Lauren, would you remind me if we don't get to that? I'll show you guys in the LinkedIn profile. So we'll get through this and then just remind me. So the about section. Now my about section is fairly long. Part of that is I'm working for a company. I want people to do business with our company. I'm not in a job search. That doesn't mean that someone might not read this and think, wow, I like her attitude or her experience or her passion, and decide to approach me about a job. But I'm, very confidently representing Purple Ink. But I'm also telling what I like to do. If a client looks at my profile, they will see that I'm passionate about making matches. And I don't know, Lauren, Is anyone on the phone, or are people all looking?
I think everyone, based on what it looks like on here, should just be on their computers.
Okay, good, because I was going to say I can read things if we need to. Professionals through groups on LinkedIn, yes, that would be great in terms of following certain groups. So like if I'm in the Society for Human Resource Management, and there's an Indianapolis chapter, Indy Sherm. So definitely I would follow Indy Sherm on LinkedIn for sure. So this section is what drives you, what makes you get up in the morning, and what is someone going to get when they have you on their team. So this is how you show up. It's not boring. You can use, first person. You can say I. So I'm saying I will personally walk beside you on your journey to discover your next adventure. I will challenge you, push you, and encourage you. So this is the place we can do that. We don't tend to do that on the resume as much. We might use first person in the summary, but we don't use the I word. We don't use me on the resume. Down here, I'm going more into the company. Now, this is another part where I've got my strengths in here. Gallup says my top 5 are, and I put them in here. This is where I'm referencing my banner photo. If you have a passion for hockey, Lauren, you might want that to be, your banner. I just use a photo that I upload. I take a picture every season. So I've got on there like my banner photo. I'm a Hoosier now, but was born in Michigan, and we vacation in the Leelanau Peninsula. My banner is always a photo of my favorite spots in Michigan. So this is a way to just bring some of your personality into it. It could be maybe you've got a passion for computer technology or just something interesting, and people want to work with people they think are interesting. Any questions about the About section? If so, feel free to put them in the chat, and I will move to the next section. Oh, actually, I forgot I had these here, but this is kind of the guts of the About section. So again, personal brand, keywords. I didn't really mention keywords. So people get caught up on keywords, and you should understand how they work. There are applicant tracking systems, or ATSs. When you apply for a job, that system is what's taking your resume and uploading it into the system that that recruiter is going to be using to review resumes, send emails. Now they use templates. So a lot of times people feel like, oh gosh, no one ever even looked at my resume. I just got like a computer generated email. For sure, you might get a computer generated email when you first apply, and it might say something like, thanks for your application. We'll review it. If we're interested, we'll reach out to you. So they might not ever reject you, because in essence, in that application or in that email, they're telling you, hey, thanks a lot, but we're going to let you know, we'll reach out to you directly. Whether it's a recruiter or an applicant tracking system, they're still looking for keywords. They're going to look at your resume over here, the job description over here, and what's matching up. So whether it's, you need to have Microsoft Word or Excel, or whether, like if in the case of mine, if we look at this, I might look for clients. I might look for top talent, strengths. What are the words that they're looking for? Career transition. Again, clients, workplace cultures, employees. So anything that was important to them in the job, we want to make sure that word pops up here. If I really wanted to get a recruiting job, I would put the word recruiting in here a few more times. And I'm going to show you on the headline later another way that's searchable. But if a recruiter is looking for something, they will do a search on the LinkedIn system, the LinkedIn recruiting system, for keywords, and they'll get certain resumes, and it will literally be highlighted, the words that you were searching for, how they're in their resume, whether it was a past job or whether it's a current job. So right now, I would say for recruiting, I probably don't have enough keywords in here. But for career consulting, I do, because it's coming up, several times. And lastly, I do think it's good to put how they can connect with you in your About section, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, email. If you want to put your phone number, you've got to be careful with that, but that's something you could do too. And this is just about optimizing your LinkedIn. You want to really optimize it. It's not this page that's there in case someone looks at it. You want people to look at it. You want them to find you through that search mechanism. And this is just kind of a funny, hey, the recruiter added me on LinkedIn, so I guess things are getting pretty serious. But recruiters connecting with you, that's probably a good thing. And I would probably accept those connections as well. Okay, when you go into your LinkedIn profile, you want to go up to the picture in the top bar, and that's where you click on it. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to click on it. You click on that, and then it'll look like this, and it'll have the little pencils, for making edits. So check your settings. There is a new banner that's called Open for Work, and that's like that green banner. You may want to put that. It says right under Open to Job Opportunities. You can click on that, and it'll say if you're open. It'll also offer if you want to put that little frame around your headshot. If you click on the Add Profile section, that's where you would fill out all those different sections to make sure you get that all-star profile. Job seeking preferences. If you go up again into here, it's going to say settings and privacy. So you want to click on settings and privacy, and you want to go down and go through each one of these and make sure that the settings are the way that you want them to be. Ideally, you do want recruiters to know that you're open opportunities. You can actually signal your interest to recruiters. So let's say that you want to work for, Lauren, you wanted to work for the hockey team in Nashville, which I'm drawing a blank on.
The Predators.
The Predators, yeah. So you can actually signal to their recruiter that you want to work for them. If somebody wanted to work at Salesforce, you can do that as well, that kind of thing. So go through all those settings. Connect with recruiters. If there are recruiters in your field, connect with them because they may be looking for candidates with your background. Enlist your network if you've applied for a position. If you apply to, let's say that your neighbor works at Salesforce. Tell your neighbor, hey, I see that there's a job at Salesforce and I'm going to apply to it. Now, sometimes it feels awkward asking someone, or kind of seeing like, would they be a reference? Am I asking them to recommend me? This feels awkward. Many companies, especially large companies, give referral bonuses to their employees. So if if your neighbor gets, 500 or $1,000 because you got a job there, like you're doing them a favor. They want to refer people in. The other thing it does, especially at a company like Salesforce, which is humongous, is they get so many resumes that any single way you can differentiate yourself from that crowd is so important. As a recruiter, we do spend about 6 seconds on every resume. So if there's someone who I know who says, hey, so-and-so applied for that job, could you make sure that their resume gets a solid review? I am definitely going to spend more time looking at their resume. I'm going to be way more likely to cut them a little slack. Like if there was something a little goofy or something that originally when I first looked at it, I didn't think was maybe as good as some other people's, I would still probably look at it closely and maybe even call the person because I feel like they deserve, that little bit extra. Now, so that's when you're using your network, you're kind of saying, hey, I've applied. Can you put in a word for me? Or make sure they got it, however you want to do it. There's all kinds of different strategies for that. You can also go into companies and set up job alerts. So again, I'm just using Salesforce as an example. You could go into Salesforce, set up job alerts for certain titles. You will get those so that you know whenever they're posting new jobs. Following companies, associations, thought leaders. I kind of mentioned that earlier. Yes, if you're in accounting, join the CPA association, whatever it is. If there's companies that you think you want to work at, make sure you follow them. A lot of jobs are posted in the company feeds. Quick apply. I do not recommend doing quick apply. Quick apply basically takes your profile and it uploads it. It's super easy because you can just push a button, but it uploads it in a rich text format. It does not look good. When you're the recruiter on the other end on the applicant tracking system, it does not look nearly as good as a resume. If you don't have all the information filled out on your LinkedIn profile, they are only getting that. And it just kind of looks lazy. So I would always go to the job site to apply. You can upload your resume into LinkedIn, and then that would be what the quick apply would be, but you don't have a cover letter then, and you're not able to kind of tweak it a little bit anyway. And just because we're here, I'm going to show you, this is the headline underneath my name. So I have several areas. I think there's like 140 or 160 characters in the headline. I see a chat here. Okay. All righty. If we look at, if a recruiter is doing a search, they might put in recruiter and my name's going to come up. They might put in, HR consultant, my name's going to come up. LinkedIn, my name's going to come up. Now, again, if I was looking for a job, I might have things, a lot of this is for me dealing with my clients because I do a lot with career coaching. So if I really wanted to get a job in HR, which I have a lot of HR experience, I might swap some of these out. I might say employee relations. I might say HRIS, which is the HR information system. I might say ATS, applicant tracking system. I might say talent acquisition. So this is a very key section. It defaults to your current job title. So you have to go in and change it. To answer your question, Lauren, about Indeed, Indeed's fine. But if you do the quick apply on Indeed, they have their own formatted resume as well, and it does not look as good. So I would always make sure that you're uploading your resume into it instead of using, their format. Any questions on this, the settings and all of that? So this is sort of an effort to make sure that your settings are open enough so that when recruiters are looking for you, they're going to find you. And then that you're seeing things, you're actively using it. So we will move on. So speaking of being active, networking is huge. And this little graphic I did just to really show if, let's say that, Lauren, I'm going to pick on you in the middle here. Lauren, you're in the middle and you know these 5 people. One might be, your cousin, your sister, your father, your sister, your neighbor, somebody at church. Well, this guy, he knows this person, who knows this person, who knows this person, who knows this person, da, 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 da. This person knows these 2 people. This person knows this person who knows those, da, da, da. That is how networking works. It's an exponential way of kind of spreading your information. I love to play tennis. So when I was playing tennis, I just casually, mentioned to the girls I was playing with, gosh, I need to get a job, a real job, because I had been doing a lot of artwork and stuff like that. I wasn't, just wanted more of a full-time business job. And someone I was playing tennis with who I didn't really know that well at that point said, oh, well, what did you do, before? And I said, oh, I was in human resources. And she said, oh, you should talk to my friend, Jody Curtis. Well, that was 6 years ago and Jody hired me. So something as simple as a casual mention, after playing tennis, it's not about going to a big networking event and talking, although those work too. It's really just kind of thinking about who you know and who they might know and asking for introductions. So you do want to increase your network. You want to reach out to people you worked with before, anybody who you think likes you or thinks well of you. It could even be if you babysat for somebody and they know you to be reliable. Talk to them, see if they'll be a reference. If they're on LinkedIn, get connected on LinkedIn. Ask for recommendations. And when I say recommendations, and this, I really am more referring to LinkedIn. References are more what come after you're offered a job. Now, there's certainly no reason that you couldn't go into an interview and hand a recommendation to someone. That certainly is good. And we're going to go in, I'm going to show you how to get the recommendations too. Post things. This is where you're getting more active that reflect your brand and your strengths. LinkedIn, there's a little bit of positive kind of thinking and that kind of stuff on it. Hopefully not political things or anything controversial, but let's say that Lauren, again, I'm picking on you, but you're really interested in sports. So you should follow people, you should be following all the NHL owners, following those teams. If they post something interesting, feel free to share it, especially if it's sort of thought leadership type things. Maybe it's not the score or, if somebody was arrested for something, but if it's something about thought leadership, or maybe they're doing some sort of charity work in the community, that if that reflects your brand, post it. Anytime you post, someone is seeing you. And if you've got that open to work thing around your profile picture, that's an opportunity for them to go, she looks interesting. Social media. So it's being checked, and Instagram, Facebook, all that. So, and again, I'm sure ad nauseum, you guys know that. But basically, in terms of your job search, whether you think you can get a job or you think you can't, you're right. So there's a lot in sort of what you think about yourself. If you feel capable of learning new things, if you feel positive about making those connections and not embarrassed to be networking, that's going to all be in your favor. If you feel like, it's COVID, I can't really network because I can't go anywhere, then you're not going to network and you're not going to know anybody. So it's really a doing thing. I can give you all the information in the world about how to get a job. If you don't do it, you're not going to get a job, likely. One of the things that a lot of college students fail to do is utilize their career services office. Generally, just like counselors, they're there. They want to help people. They want to work with people. They have assessments they might be able to administer. The most important thing is do not lose out on an opportunity to interview on campus. You should be interviewing for any company, any job that you have interest in. It's ultimately always up to you to say no if they offer you a job. But if it's a company you've never heard of, there's a million companies nobody's ever heard of that are global, billion-dollar, million-dollar companies. Small companies, you can get some of the greatest experience you'll ever get, and they can be really fun. So Bella, mentioned recruiting. If you work for a very large company, they're going to have recruiters, trainers, employee relations people, benefits people, comp people. You work for a small company, you might do a little bit of recruiting, a little bit of benefits, a little bit of compensation. You get a lot of variety in your job. So don't discount the idea of working for a small company. Any questions? And then I'll go in and share LinkedIn as well. If you guys have any questions, let me know while I am changing the share. I thought, okay, let's see. Reaching out to professionals on LinkedIn. Okay. Do you have any advice for reaching out to professionals on LinkedIn? Yes. I would say sometimes it's as simple as just saying, like for today, like you could send me something and just say, well, let's see here. Let's try here. Bella, are you on LinkedIn yet or not? Or Lauren? Is one of you
yes,
guys?
Yes, ma'am. I am on LinkedIn.
Bella, is that Bella?
Yes, I can type my name in the chat.
Okay.
That's my actual name.
That's a good point too, actually, is kind of decide sometimes, sorry, when you're using like your more formal name, or if you're using a nickname too, you can, kind of put it in parentheses. So you're a third connection for me. So your picture looks great. Now, sometimes this will just say connect. This is saying message, which is probably going to take me into recruiter. So this is kind of, you're seeing the back. Did it switch or not?
No, it just shows the recruiter view. My LinkedIn is kind of a work in progress for me because we didn't really I'm still learning. Whenever we were in high school, the amount of business we had is we didn't really have it. So I still have my high school work experience on there just because I don't have anything else other to show.
That's okay.
Right now.
That's okay. So this is how someone though with recruiter, could message you. I want to kind of go back though, because I got into our recruiting platform. Okay, so sometimes it'll just say connect, and you might connect with someone and just say, Isabella, I'd love to connect with you. Thanks so much. It could be as simple as that. Or it could be, like if you were trying to connect with me, you might say, Peggy, thank you for speaking today. I'd love to add you to my network. Something as simple as that is good. So I'm going to go into my profile. The high school accomplishments, I mean, if that is your most recent experience, like the last couple years, then I would keep it on. If it will fall off as you put more on. So there's no harm in having that stuff on right now, your accomplishments. This is where you add profile sections that I was talking about earlier. This is in terms of getting a recommendation. Additional information, if you go to your own profile and you go to additional information, you can request a recommendation. So I might, sorry. I would type in a name and it should be someone, so I'll put in Jody Curtis. She's, my boss. And I would say position at the time. Okay, I know her from this job. So I would do that. And then it would go, should go next. Oh, I didn't click on that. Sorry. Jody managed me directly. Then I would go like this. Then I would write something in here. Let's say that it was a former boss. I might say, so-and-so, I wanted to touch base with you. I am in my senior year at IUPUI and I'm trying to fill out my LinkedIn profile. I really enjoyed working for you and admired your leadership. I was wondering if you'd be willing to write a recommendation for me. You could just say something as simple as, I was wondering, I'm going to be looking for a job soon. And I was wondering if you'd be willing to write a recommendation for me. So I probably wouldn't just say out of the blue, could you write me a recommendation? Seems like there should be a little lead in there, but that is how you do that. Now there's other ways of doing it as well. I could go, tell me if this goes to Jody's. Do you guys see Jody's?
Yep.
Okay. I could go to Jody's and I could go to the more button right here and go down and request a recommendation that way. Same thing. I could also recommend her. So if I go back to me again, you want to probably have 3 recommendations if you can. So I have given recommendations to people. So that's where that is. That's a good way sometimes, like you guys could recommend each other from being in the same, organization. And then I've also, received recommendations. So anyway, those are really important because, they're usually kind of from the heart. Any other questions about this or anything really? And we're probably getting over on time. Let's see. Well, we're just about 4.